The Power Mac G5, introduced in 2003 as the world's first 64-bit consumer desktop computer, shortly after its launch, AMD would introduce their consumer 64-bit CPUs, giving IBM and Apple some very real competition. IBM would never get a G5 running cool enough for a laptop model, causing Apple to shortly after transition to Intel and abandon PowerPC technology altogether. Hey everyone, how's it going? Mark here. I've got my Power Mac G5 fired up here, and I want to see if we can actually take a look at trying to put a modern Linux on this. I want to see if this machine is actually still usable. I have the 2 GHz dual processor machine over here, and I've gone ahead and burned Debian SID to CD here, and we are going to try to install the PowerPC version. So let's see if this works. And I've got it booted up here. There's just our partitions on our SSD with the Mac OS installations. I'm completely fine with wiping this. I don't really have too much configured on them. So let's go ahead and boot up our CD-ROM right here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and click on the default install. For me, I'm just gonna go ahead and select English here. Now, I'm going to be completely honest, I have not been able to get this to work successfully. I have not tried on this dual G5 machine before, but I have tried on a couple different PowerBook G4s with the 32-bit installation, and every time I end up in failure. So let's see if we can actually get this to work together. Now we've got a prompt here. Some of your hardware needs non-free firmware files to operate. It wants to load from removable media, but I do not have drivers set up on any removable media for this at the moment. It looks like it's probably for Wi-Fi hardware. Let's just tell it no. Okay, now that it's gone through detecting most of our hardware, let's give this a host name. Let's just call this the Debian Dual G5. I'm going to go ahead and leave the domain name blank. That shouldn't give us any issues. Continue. Next, it wants me to go ahead and set up a root password here. So let's go ahead and get that done. And they do match. Full name, we're just going to go with Mark. And Mark for the username works just fine. Pop in a password. I'm in the Eastern time zone, so that's fine. Okay, so now we're at disk partitioning, and I just wanted to say, like I said, I haven't been able to get this to work successfully before. We're going to go ahead and use the entire disk, and SDA, yes. Go ahead and do all-in-one. This isn't going to be a daily driver machine, should be fine. Sure, we're going to click finish partitioning and write changes to disk, looks good to me. And I'm going to make a note here, it is SDA partition 2, that's HFS. That should be our boot partition. So I'm going to click yes to writing these changes. And we've got another prompt here that says scanning installation media, found our disk there, and it just is saying we have the option of scanning additional media. Don't have anything extra, so let's click no. Now here, I'll just go ahead and click Germany. That should be fine. deb.debian.org. And we're just going to leave this blank. Should be fine with the default. Alright, another pop-up here. It's just asking on the popularity contest. Basically, do we want to share anonymous data with the developers? Normally I'd say no to any of this, but since it is PowerPC and it's 2022, I'm going to go ahead and share this information. Okay, and for our software installation it wants us to choose. I'm going to choose the Debian desktop environment as well as XFCE. That's my go-to on lighter weight systems. So let's move on. Well folks, we've got a pop-up here saying our installation's complete, and just to remove our media right here and press continue. I'm actually completely surprised. I had no issues. I was expecting at least some type of hang-up during this installation. But let's go ahead and click continue. Awesome! Welcome to Grub on the very first try. Let's move on. Now right here it's saying I2C PowerMac mod alias failure. I don't know what that means. Let's hang on for a second and see if this actually boots or not. Well, after fighting with it a little bit there, I'm fingers crossed hoping that this boot works. I was having display issues with the analog signal. I don't have a DVI cable at the moment, so I've been running an adapter. I switched a few things around so it's at least taking a HDMI conversion for a digital signal. It seems to be booting. Hopefully this works. Awesome. There we go. We've actually got our login screen there. And there we have it. It's a successful fresh install of Debian SID on a dual processor PowerPC G5. So let's see if we can make this look a little more at home and possibly get some Doom installed. Alright folks, it's been a few days and now I'm able to revisit this again. Just been really busy with work. So I've encountered an issue, and I thought it was just a fluke in the beginning with the machine not wanting to boot into Linux properly, but now I've kind of realized I do have a consistent problem. So let's cross our fingers and go ahead and boot this up, see if I can duplicate this or if it actually wants to just successfully boot into Debian. Well, this time it booted successfully. So this is where I keep having the issue though. Most of the time it fails to initialize the video card drivers. Pretty sure it's because it's deprecated for quite a while at this point for this actual card. It's FX 5200. I think that's my problem. I may try to source a newer card that this will support in the future. So let's move on. Alright, and now that we're booted in, I've gone ahead and as you can see everything looks a little more at home. It is on XFCE still, but I've just gone ahead and customized it just a bit there. And the dock was pre-installed by default, so that was pretty cool as well. Now, I looked at trying to install ArcticFox earlier from the repositories we had. It was a pretty old version. I've gone ahead and compiled it myself. It actually took a few hours on this machine. Well, let's launch it here. It is the most recent version for PowerPC. Now, as you can see, I've compiled it here myself. This is the latest version available for this platform at the moment. Now, with this being an older build of ArcticFox, here, I'm going to show you, I am still having some compatibility issues with some websites. The default browser, I think, is having a graphical issue, probably with the video card, but I'll go ahead and show you a comparison with that as well. Alright, so here's going to be a good example. I was just looking for some themes for XFCE when I was setting this up. And here, watch when I go ahead and click a link. I can't get any further with any of them. So We're having some type of issue, probably because the browser's a little out of date at this point. So here, I'll show you on the stock web browser now. While we're here, even just loading Google, looks like you can't really see anything. It's here. We're just having a graphical issue like I was talking about earlier. Yeah, the formatting's correct, everything's here, but we are having graphical issues as well. It's pretty hard to read overall unless you select everything. Let's go ahead and click the same theme here. Yeah, as you can see here, we've got all our links, everything's loaded in. We can actually try to download our files, something I'm not able to do on the build of Arctic Fox I have here. Here's another one just to check. I've gone ahead and tried to load up Reddit here. I want to see if the regular website loads properly instead of having to use old.reddit. It looks like some of this is loading in, but it's loading fairly slow. Let's see here. We do have some posts loading, so I'm just going to go ahead and let this sit for a minute, and we'll see what happens. Well, I waited over 15 minutes, and I got nowhere with that. It does load old.reddit just fine. Nothing special to see here. I'm not really going to spend any time on this, but I at least wanted to see if we could load a modern website like Reddit. So this computer's from 2004. Let's take a look at apple.com from back then. Oh man, look at that old classic Apple website loading in. I remember this from growing up when I was a teenager. So yeah, this is what the Apple website would have looked like back in 2004 when this computer was current. The Power Mac G5, starting at $14.99. Let's move on from that. And the next thing I wanted to do, I've got Doom installed on here. Let's see what happens. Before we go into this, I kind of forgot to mention, I haven't been able to get the sound to work on this machine. It's not quite my top priority at the moment. Kind of want to get this video out before it becomes too long of a project here, and I'll look into that a little more in the future. I've got that fired up. It's a pretty stuttery mess, but it is compatible and running on this machine. Let's go ahead and start a new game. Well, these controls are pretty rough right now on this mouse and keyboard setup I have at the moment. But it does run. The performance is pretty brutal. We're probably getting maybe 12 to 15 FPS, I'd guess. It's pretty low. It's a stuttery mess, but it does work. The Mac plays Doom. So, let's go ahead and get out of this here. And I just went ahead and fired up NeoFetch here. You can see our machine specs right here. We've got our Power Mac 7,3, and there you've got our PowerPC 970 dual processors at 2 GHz, and our GeForce FX 5200 Ultra. Got 4 gigs of memory currently installed in this machine. Well, I guess it's about time to wrap things up, and now's a good point. This went pretty well overall. It actually ended up being a painless installation. I was expecting tons of headaches with this, but overall it went really smoothly. I do have some graphical issues, and I'm having trouble with audio and getting modern video support. That's just part of the battle. I'll spend some more time with that later and see if I can make any headway. It's at least nice to see this dual processor PowerPC actually still working in 2022. Being as the last release for Mac OS for these things was in 2009. I can't really understand why I was having video driver issues with trying to boot into Linux, but overall it seems to be fine now. It's amazing to see anybody still supports PowerPC, big Indian, especially considering it was barely available to consumers and it's long dead at this point. Well, if you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ding that bell so you get notified every time I release content like this in the future. Leave a comment down below for any suggestions for future topics or any ideas you might have, as well as any more information you might have on this topic. And as always, thanks for watching, and until next time.